Good evening. This is Maestro Cortello with a Company of Heroes 2 cast. Today we have a 1v1 on Minsk Pocket. Our first player right here, playing as the Ostheer or the Ostheer, is Sage of the Six. And on the other side, our Soviet player is Fortune. So this is actually Fortune from Dawn of War 2. He's kind of moved on a bit past Dawn of War 2 and plays Company of Heroes 2 pretty religiously. He's invested something like 400 hours into it. He's almost has reached level 100, if you know what that means, if you actually play the game. And he's someone who's a very outside-the-box thinker. I play with him quite a bit in 2v2. Here we got a 1v1, and interestingly, Fortune is also playing as the Soviets, whereas he usually plays as Germans. That's definitely his main faction, although there are only two factions, and definitely as a Company of Heroes 2 player, pretty much anyone who plays Company of Heroes 2, you really do actually play both factions, especially, at least if you're interested in playing the game competitively at all, since tournament rules for Company of Heroes 2 actually do require you to be able to play both factions. You will have to actually play both factions if you actually want to play Company of Heroes 2 competitively. So our opening builds, Sage of the Six has a very interesting opening build where he has not built any Grenadiers, so he has not built any basic infantry units. Instead he's gone straight for heavy machine gun teams, suppression teams. And he's already got two of them out on the field. The MG42 has recently been buffed by being given an extra man, basically just making the team a little bit more durable. That has actually been one of the main complaints that many people have had, just about the way the game was balanced and the way it's been designed. The original Company of Heroes only had 3-man weapons teams, and then Company of Heroes 2 has changed that a bit, where originally the Germans had 3-man weapon teams, and then the Soviets had 6-man weapon teams. Now that created a little bit of you could say an imbalance, where the Soviet weapons teams were just a lot harder to kill, a lot harder to force off, whereas the German weapons teams were very easy to kill and very easy to force off. Especially a flank by a conscript squad and then a follow-up with a Molotov would often be enough, if not force off an MG42, it could sometimes even kill all of the crew members and then decrew it. And that's especially something that is not terribly. It's also much easier to perform flanks with the Soviets, especially with the conscripts, because they have that URA ability. And we actually just saw that right there. Right now, these machine guns are doing a little bit of a dance. Although Sage of the Six started out with a machine gun build, he did follow it up with some Grenadiers. These Grenadiers are just basic infantry units. They do have bolt-action rifles that they can just use to fight. They're mobile. They can be upgraded to have an MG42. Regardless of your doctrine, to increase their damage. They can also get Gewehr 43s to also increase their damage, but that is doctrine specific. So on the other side of things, Fortune, he's going for, he obviously has two conscripts on the field, so he's not going for a conscript spam build, which is pretty common in this game, with just the fact that conscripts are both cheap, versatile, and you can get them out of your first production building. Fortune also throws a Molotov in the building, and with only 2 members, that could be pretty bad news for the machine gun, but it just manages to get out of there. And here we see that MG42 upgrade on Sage of the Six's Grenadiers. They actually might be able to take out Fortune's conscript squad, and they do. So there's the MG42 heavy machine gun, which you get on the heavy machine gun team. That suppresses, and you can also upgrade your Grenadiers to have an MG42 light machine gun. It's handheld. It does not have a bipod or tripod. It does not need to set up, although it does need to be firing. The squad does need to be stationary to fire it. It actually does quite a bit of damage. Here we see that Soviet machine gun, the Maxim gun, absolutely destroying the MG42. Might even take out the MG42 team. And it looks like Sage of the Six still has not realized it. He has just now realized it. But will he be able to get that machine gun member out of there? And it looks like he just barely will. Oh, no, just kidding. I thought maybe with that Maxim gun reloading, He would have gotten that MG42 gunner out of there, but unfortunately that wasn't the case for him. Looks like Sage of the Six might try to go for a recrew. This could be risky. I thought we might see a Molotov. We do, in fact, see a Molotov. So this could be very dangerous. Could be really bad news for Sage of the Six to recrew a machine gun and then possibly just lose it again. Looks like he actually will get it out of there this time. So that was a risky play by Sage of the Six. He could have that could have just went really badly for him, where he may have just lost the members that he tried to recrew that gun with. And then he would have just lost even more manpower trying to save his gun. But the positive side of that, it was a risky play, but it was a risk that paid off in his favor, because it means he gets to keep his machine gun, and he'll be able to prevent it from falling into Fortune's hands. Now, Fortune's obviously gone for a machine gun play of his own. This Maxim gun is something that is very, very powerful. It's a very, very good setup team. I believe it has been changed a bit in the most recent patch to try to nerf it a bit, but it's probably still very good with just having as many members it does, doing more damage than the MG42 machine gun. And one of the very strange things in Company of Heroes 2 is that machine guns, heavy machine guns, can actually still fire normally, even while they are themselves suppressed. So that means if you have two heavy machine guns shooting at each other, the suppression actually doesn't really matter. They can't move, but they'll still be able to just shoot, which it seems silly to me, but that's just how it is in this game. Looks like those Maxims still have a very short D setup time, so it still seems to be pretty easy to get them set up. That Maxim gun, it does have a very narrow firing arc, but it's still a very, very good setup team. And there are generally two different opening strategies or early game strategies for the Soviets. Fortune has gone for the support weapon camp, and that generally means he's going with the Maxim gun spam strategy. And he's only got two, so maybe not. It might not really be spam, but basically he's just gone for the focus on Maxim guns. The other strategy, of course, is one that if you've been playing the game, you certainly know about it, which is going the special rifle command and getting out those Soviet scout cars. Now, speaking of scout cars, we actually have a German scout car from Sage of the Six. This thing is not terribly powerful, but it's actually, I've been realizing that it is pretty useful for the Germans. It's just fast. It's good for chasing down snipers. You can use it to get around weapons teams. The half-track is a little better for that purpose. But the best thing about the scout car, probably, the German scout car, is that it's one of the best early game answers to the Soviet scout car, which is just a huge source of frustration for many players. It's actually just a frustration as far as balance goes. Many people are not happy with the Russian scout car, the way it's designed, and the impact it has on gameplay. Not gonna lie, I'm not too fond of either. So when I do play the Ostheer, I am very fond of this scout car, even though it's not something that is hugely powerful in any sense, really. But it's just very, very useful. Here it looks like it's actually going to crash. It took just one shot from that divisional field gun that Fortune has on the field, and it went down. We have a half-track here as well, not set up in a good position, but Fortune turned his AT gun the wrong way. Now, one of the other benefits of going for the support weapon camp first as the Soviets is that you get very, very early access to anti-tank. Basically, out of the first production building you build, you can actually have an anti-tank unit, which is very interesting. There's obviously nothing really like that in Dawn of War 2. Wow, he got really, really lucky there. Fortune, oh my God, he got lucky there in so many ways. First of all, his field gun had already been gotten the half track from Sage of the Six had already gotten around Fortune's field gun. And Fortune was actually able to just constantly micro the firing arc of his field gun so that he could actually take out the half track. And then he actually didn't kill the half track. He was able to make it so that its crew abandon it. Now, this is something that happens randomly. Whenever you're dealing with any kind of vehicle in the game, there is a small chance that instead of killing the vehicle outright, you can make it so that the crew abandons it. And then that actually leaves it open to being stolen. And of course, the player who lost it can also get it back, but usually it's left in a position where the other player can steal it, and that's exactly what happened right here. Fortune has actually stolen that Flamer half-track, which is pretty awesome, because that Flamer half-track is one of the best early game assets that the Germans have. It's often one of their answers to a lot of the things that come out of the Soviets, whether it's Maxim gun spam, conscript spam. That German half-track is very, very effective against all those things. Just very powerful anti-infantry. It's a vehicle. It's very mobile. Since it is a half-track, it also is a reinforcement point, so you can reinforce it on the field. It starts out as a transport. It loses its ability to transport units once you put the Flammenwerfers on them. However, it still keeps the ability to reinforce. Now, Fortune has not yet picked a doctrine. So certainly if you've been keeping up with the game, a lot of the most powerful or the most popular doctrines with the for the Soviets are just about anything. There are two doctrines that have an ability called Hit the Dirt, as well as an upgrade for conscripts to get the PPSH submachine guns. So there are two doctrines that allow that, and those are generally very popular doctrines. Looks like Fortune may even kill this heavy machine gun team, and he does on retreat. So that's one of the other things that is very good about this half-track, as well as the Soviet scout car when you put a flamer unit inside of it, which is that they are both very good for killing units on retreat. We saw that half-track chasing down that heavy machine gun for quite a while. They're good at chasing units on retreat because they are a vehicle, so they have pretty good speed. Additionally, flame weapons, I believe, actually do full damage on retreat. Now, this game, unlike Dawn of War 2, there is no melee whatsoever, so obviously melee is not going to do bonus damage on retreat. You don't have that kind of, for the most part, you don't have that kind of retreat killing potential, but there are other things that have a lot of retreat killing potential, such as this half-track with the Flammenwerfer. So Fortune has teched. He got his support weapon camp. He has also teched straight to the mechanized armor camp, which is a very popular move to do for the Russians. That means a lot of that has to do with the fact that you can very, very early get out the Su-85 medium tank destroyer, which is one of the best sources of anti-tank in the game. In fact, you could argue that it's the best source of anti-tank in the game, but that's debatable. But it's still certainly one of, undeniably one of the best sources of anti-tank. That being said, Fortune has not gone for the Su-85. He's gone for a different SU that is just about to be built. Hopefully we can see that. He got out this Su-76 assault gun. Not quite as powerful as anti-tank. Can work against light vehicles such as a half-track, a scout car. But in particular, that Su-76 is very good because of the fact that it has a free barrage ability. Right now, we see a barrage ability coming out from this field gun, but this ability is not free. It costs munitions, whereas the Su-76's barrage ability is free. Now, unfortunately, we have a pack anti-tank gun from Sage of the Six, but it looks like it's going to get decrewed. There was that barrage ability from the field gun, as well as this half-track was just already there. And it was actually not quite good for Sage of the Six to just have his pack right here when the half-track was just right around this fence, because it was blocking line of sight, and then it could just very quickly drive around and then burn down those half-track members. Now, that being said, Sage of the Six probably couldn't see it because of the true sight system. I, of course, have the Fog of War off. But the true sight system just basically means that the Fog of War is not supposed to actually reveal, instead of just revealing units in a radius, it's supposed to not reveal units that your units would not be able to see. So like right here, the pack anti-tank gun shouldn't be able to see through that fence, so they actually make it in this game so that if you can't see, if there's a fence there and you shouldn't be able to see through a fence, you won't be able to see through a fence, as opposed to the way things definitely worked out in Dawn of War or the original Company of Heroes. Just had those flat sight radiuses where you could just see anything within a given radius, even if there was a fence or a wall blocking it. So Fortune has quite a bit of map control right now. He's at least got... Yeah, he's in a good situation as far as map control goes, and he's definitely dug in the middle. He set down some sandbags, which is an ability, I believe, from the conscripts. Sandbags are basically just green cover, so you just have an ability to put down green cover if you like. Now, Fortune is going to take this building. He's garrisoned his conscripts. Garrisons are very, very powerful in Company of Heroes 2. They provide a lot of protection, more so in the original Company of Heroes. And although the garrisons on Dawn of War provide comparable protection from small arms fire, the sources of anti-garrison in this game, I'd say, are generally not quite as good as in Dawn of War 2. Generally a bit less reliable, sometimes a bit more random, especially something like a pack anti-tank gun, which you can shoot the garrison, it would damage the building, but sometimes it just kind of misses. Now we have a Stug assault gun out of Sage of the Six. This is a very interesting choice, and it's also something that's pretty uncommon. The Stug assault gun is a assault gun. It is a tank destroyer assault gun, mainly used as anti-tank. It has almost no anti-infantry capabilities out of the gate, although you can upgrade it to have a top-mounted MG42 machine gunner to give it some modest anti-infantry capabilities. Generally these days, most players will opt to get Panzer IV, since you can get that. Well, if we take a look at Sage of the Six's side, this comes from the Support Armor Corps, and out of this building, you can get the Stug, which is the cheapest unit you can get out of that building. But generally, people go for the Panzer IV, because it's an all-rounder tank. It's overall probably just better than the Stug. It functions as anti-tank as well as anti-infantry, and it functions quite effectively at both. Whereas this Stug is, in fact, I'm not even sure if the Stug is necessarily even better than the Panzer IV at being anti-tank. But it's mostly just solid, relatively decent anti-tank while being relatively cheap. The Stug is pretty cheap. And right now it's chasing down this half-track, which it certainly, the half-track does not stand a chance against the Stug. Neither does this Su-76, to be honest. At least I don't think it does. For right now, Fortune is gunning for the half-track. I think he should actually switch targets to the Su-76 while he can still beat the Su-76. And it looks like he will do that, because just in a head-on fight, yeah, the Stug is just going to beat the Su-76. There was some risk there where he may have not killed that Su-76 if he had kept on focusing on the half-track, especially with that half-track being as resilient as it was. Now, there are all sorts of weird things that go on whenever you're trying to kill a vehicle. Supposedly there's something where there's actually a chance where even if you are at a point where you can kill a vehicle, there's a percent chance that you won't, and you'll just get it down to like a sliver of health. There are a lot of strange things in this game that are determined by a percent chance, so in that sense, the game is somewhat random, a bit more so than Dawn of War 2, but at the same time it also does make it a bit more complicated, and there's just a greater variety in cases sometimes of things that can happen, especially in regards to vehicles. Vehicles, I would definitely say, are more complex in this game than they are in Dawn of War 2. We have a Grenadier squad that is quite out of place, just behind enemy lines. Probably going to retreat out of there with all three models, though. And it looks like Fortune is losing a bit of ground. Fortune just lost both an Su-76 and his stolen Flamer half-track. Right now, wow, he actually already has a KV-8 heavy tank. So he has chosen a Doctrine, and I haven't realized just... This is a doctrinal tank. It is a flamethrower tank, and it is probably the most powerful flamethrower weapon in the game. It is extremely powerful. And Fortune is actually driving it in a place where, well, he doesn't have to worry too much about that Stug, since he's going to kill the Stug with his field gun. Now, the anti-tank guns in this game, wow, I think Fortune even just wiped a squad with that KV, and the KV is just straight up driving through the wall, so that's a heavy tank. It is the heaviest class of tank, and it looks like he's going to go for a flank on a lot of Sage of the Six's stuff. I don't think Sage of the Six really even knows this. This is going to be extremely painful for Sage of the Six. Right now it's just a deadlocked machine gun battle in the middle, but Fortune is breaking that with his flamethrower tank. He might even wipe this machine gun team if it starts firing again. Can he do it? The flame projector is not firing. I think he will. Yeah, he's going to wipe that. He's got to. Oh, maybe not. Oh, wow. That was actually pretty lucky, I think, for that machine gun team to get out of there. Now, Fortune couldn't stay in there too long because there was a pack anti-tank gun shooting at his tank, and he does not want to lose this pack. I mean, he does not want to lose this flamethrower tank. I mean, it's doing such incredible work. But he was actually lucky that, or Sage of the Six was lucky that that machine gun had actually switched, ran to the other side of the tank, and then the turret of the tank was not actually turning fast enough to catch up, so Sage of the Six was lucky to get that machine gun team out of there, and he's actually reinforcing it in his base. But we have that pack anti-tank gun. These anti-tank guns do have a very, very long range in this game, so you have to be very careful. In fact, often the anti-tank guns are going to start hitting your tanks before you can even see them, and you have to be very careful. And usually once you start getting hit by a tank, you need to start backing up immediately, unless you can do something to actually take out the anti-tank gun. But that's something that's not as practical in this game as it is in Dawn of War 2. You don't have those things like teleporting and jumping units that can just instantly get toward a unit like an anti-tank gun. And then even if you get a flank, you often can't put enough pressure on it quickly enough in this game as you would in Dawn of War 2. And that's especially true for the Soviet machine guns. I mean, for the Soviet anti-tank guns with their 6 members. Certainly, pack anti-tank guns are a little more easily threatened by Molotovs from conscripts. Now we have that Panzer IV out from Sage of the Six. So this is roughly the standard tank that you can expect from German players, and in some ways, it might even be the best tank that the Germans have right now. Now, it's not the best tank in terms of like just flat out on paper, probably, since there are tanks with more armor, more penetration, some better stats, but this Panzer IV is very, very good for the value you get out of it in terms of how much it costs, and especially when you can get it in the game. It comes out of that Tier 3 tech building, and it's such a good deal for coming out of that Tier 3 tech building compared to a lot of other things that can come out in the game. Since there's also the Panther tank and there's also the Tiger tank, but those are just the costs, as well as the tech requirements for those tanks, just make them a lot more prohibitive than this Panzer IV, which is very accessible because of its price and because of what tech building you get it out of. The Panther requires the next tech building, the Tier 4 tech building, and that's just a little more prohibitive because if you try to go to that tech building without getting a Panzer IV, then that's just a lot more game time that you're going without a solid all-around tank like the Panzer IV. The Tiger is, of course, something that is very expensive, and it comes out of, it's a doctrine-specific tank. And some people are even saying that the Tiger overall is not that good. And of course, one of the great things about this Panzer IV is because of its relative cost, because of the building that you get it out of, it can actually be very, very practical to get multiple Panzer IVs, and especially because it's so good, it's all around solid, both as anti-tank as well as anti-infantry. Now, Fortune, of course, does have this KV-8 heavy tank, which is quite wow. It just completely decrews that mortar team. So this KV-8 heavy tank, quite a bit different from that Panzer IV. It's a heavy tank. It is also very much a specialist tank since it's anti-infantry. It has those flame projectors. It actually can switch between the flame projectors and a 45mm cannon, although I haven't personally found much use for that 45mm cannon. I think a lot of people probably don't think so either. Here's that Su-85 medium tank destroyer, generally considered definitely one of the best sources of anti-tank in the game. It's actually, many people complain about it being overpowered, and it looks like Fortune's Su-85 will take out that Panzer IV from Sage of the Six. And Sage of the Six is not looking too great on units right now. He's actually building no, that's a PaK-43 anti-tank gun. I thought that was a howitzer. And he's actually building it right in front of his base, which I think is very curious, to build it right in front of his base. But that Su-85, it is an assault gun, another tank destroyer, much like the Stug, except better, although with less potential anti-infantry capabilities. Not that the anti-infantry capabilities of the Stug are really that great anyway. But Stug. Sage of the Six is losing quite a few units. He just lost another machine gun team to this KV-8. That KV-8 is absolutely fantastic for dealing with any kind of infantry. So it's lucky that it probably does lose to most kinds of tanks, especially basically any medium or heavy tank it's probably going to lose to, which is interesting because it is itself a heavy tank, but just with relatively minimal anti-tank capabilities. VPs are relatively even at 367 to 331. We now have shock troops out for Fortune. They were fighting these regular grenadiers, and the regular grenadiers were actually winning. They had more health. They are at Vet 2, and at Vet 2 they will get an increase in armor, making them more durable. Now those shock troops, certainly at full health, with full members, they should be winning just about any infantry fight in the game. They probably just are the best source, probably the best type of infantry for killing other infantry in the game. And oh my god, we have these Vet 3 Grenadiers may even be done. Unfortunately, Fortune is driving his KV-8 in the wrong direction. Even then, even driving his Grenadiers in the wrong direction, driving the KV-8 in the wrong direction, those Grenadiers do get down to just one member. So we have a Pack 43 as well as an artillery building. So that means that Sage of the Six, I don't remember the exact name of this doctrine, but it's supposed to be some kind of like joint operations or combined arms doctrine, since he's getting both artillery, field artillery, as well as an emplacement gun for taking out tanks.
You guys, listen to me if you want to live.
Now he's building both of them in very curious positions, sort of right in front of his base. Not one thing that could happen with that, it could just be good as almost like a trap. Sage of the Six will probably start using the artillery first, and that could just prompt movement by Fortune to try to go to the base, to Sage of the Six's base to try to take out the howitzer. And then if he tries to approach the howitzer with a tank, that tank will be in for a big surprise when it starts taking hits from this pack. This pack anti-tank gun, this pack 43 as compared to the pack 40, which is the mobile unit, is one of the best sources of anti-tank in the game. Extremely powerful, very long range as well. And I'm actually not sure what that barrage was. That was actually the light artillery barrage. That's just an off-map ability. It costs munitions. It does not actually come from the howitzer. This KV-8 is still being absolutely devastating. If it gets another burst off of flames, I think it would take out this machine gun team. And yes, it does. This KV-8 is incredibly devastating to infantry. He is moving roughly into range. Oh, and the Pack 43 took a shot, but it missed that KV-8. The KV-8 is no longer in the firing arc of that Pack 43, and I think Fortunes might even try to get really close to that Pack 43 and attack it with his KV-8. He's just right there. He might take one shot on approach, but I think if this KV-8 even starts attacking the Pack 43, it just might decrew it. As it is, he seems to be going for the artillery first, and I think he will decrew the artillery. Needs to be careful about getting hit. Now Fortune is microing the tank so that he's staying out of the firing arc of that Pack 43, and I think he will just straight up decrew that Pack 43. No, I was afraid he was going to move back into the arc. Now he's taking out the... Oh, my God. Absolutely. This KV-8 is an incredible unit. And especially one of the great things about that KV-8 is that it's relatively cheap. At 360 manpower and 135 fuel, that's a relatively cheap tank. Especially for how good it can be. I mean, if you think about it, the other tanks, this Su-85 the Su-85 is cheaper, but the Su-85 is just, well, it's cheaper. But I guess certainly compared to the other doctrinal tanks coming out of the Soviets are so incredibly expensive. The IS-2 is 680 manpower and 300 fuel. And this is really terrible for Sage of the Six. Looks like Sage of the Six is trying to scare Fortune off by using a light artillery barrage, even kind of right on top of his own stuff. But it looks like both his artillery piece as well as his Pack 43 did not even get hit by his own off-map artillery. and Sage of the Six has built another Stug to try to help him out, but I don't know if that's going to be enough. He's about to get hit. Everything's going to, and he does lose his, that Stug. He had a new Stug just as anti-tank, and that Stug might do decently against the KV-8, but unfortunately for him, Fortune already had this SU-85, although Fortune's about to lose his SU-85. Took a shot from, must have taken a shot from that Pak-43. Now this Pak-43 is something that, I don't know, it seems, in some ways it seems nice, just because of how incredibly powerful it is. But it also seems to be very easily decrewed because it's a weapon team. It's a stationary weapon team that can't move at all, and it just has 3 members, so it seems to be very easily decrewed. So Fortune has amassed quite a force right here. Sage of the Six is pretty much pinned in his base, and I don't know if there's a whole lot he can do otherwise to get back out. Over here we have an MG42 that is fighting to the end, and I think it will be the end of that MG42 since it is about to get hit by this KV-8.
The Russians are coming! Panzer fire!
Yeah, that MG42 is done. This KV-8, oh my God, it has 35 kills. It's not even Veteran C2, although it is almost there. And unfortunately, that Pak-43 is gone. It's been replaced by just a regular Pak-40. And now what we see from this KV-8 is that it has a little cross-out icon above itself. What that means is that its weapons are currently disabled, but it can actually cap. And that's an ability that is specific to the Russians, or to the Soviets, rather. Their tanks at Veteran C1 get an ability where they can capture points, but while they are in a capture mode, their weapons are disabled. So that's very interesting because you can actually get map control out of your tanks. You just need to be careful about the fact that your tank will be defenseless, at least for the time that it's captured. So Sage of the Six has managed to recrew his artillery, and he's firing it. But I don't know if that's going to be enough at this point. He's already lost a lot of the map. He is down in VPs. It's a triple cap against him. Like this artillery piece. Wow, that was a grenade from the shock troops, doing almost nothing. Quite terrible. The shock troops are a great unit in so many ways. One of their strengths, though, is one thing that is not one of their strengths is that apparently their grenade. They do have grenade ability, but it seems to be one of the worst grenades in the game, possibly the worst. And Fortune completely has the map. Sage of the Six has gone for an Ostwind. So the Ostwind is an interesting tank. I actually like the Ostwind a lot. It is mainly an anti-infantry tank, however. It can do definitely some damage to light vehicles, and it can actually damage armor a bit. But it certainly head-to-head, it will lose to just about any real tank. Although I've heard it actually does fairly well against the T-34. Oh, and that pack, or no, that was actually the artillery, just straight up died at that point. And this is not looking good. I mean, it's already been overwhelming map control. Sage of the Six is staying in this, but and there goes the Ostwind. Not much left for Sage of the Six. And here's that KVA. It takes a while to level this thing up, even when it gets a ton of kills. Oh, and there is that IS-2 heavy tank from Fortune. Yep, and that's it. Actually ended up being a little one-sided in the end, but hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.